Hey, you guys, I wanted to start off with an apology to you all for coming in late with this one, but I felt it warranted a video, and hopefully, this will serve as a beacon of hope towards recognizing our naivete when it comes to politics. I decided to come on here and talk about this article from CNN, and it talks about how some of the jurors from the Breonna Taylor case are seeking to impeach Daniel Cameron. And for those who don't know, he was a black attorney general who oversaw the case of Breonna Taylor when the situation initially happened. A lot of people expressed their dismay and contempt for his unwillingness to establish consequences for those police officers responsible for her death, and this was done primarily through social media and other forms of civil disobedience. He is considered one of the most hated people in this country because of his nonchalant and impassive actions towards her case. And I remember there was a time last year where the backlash had become so insurmountable that he had to deactivate all of the social media platforms. And I briefly spoke on him in previous videos where I talked about Breonna Taylor, and for me, I said that the reason for his ascension to this reputable position was because of Black people's ignorance, and this is undeniable. Black people are so focused and fixated towards thinking that we just need more of us in these positions and that somehow will help to alleviate some of the inequities that we're subject to, or at least lessen the impact that certain laws have on our community. We tell our people each election cycle to get out there and vote for whatever Black person is running for office, and we don't vet them properly to ensure that they are community minded and have an allegiance to their community first and foremost, before blindly throwing support behind these people. And then we wind up being upset and having these outbursts on social media. And to me, it's selective outrage. How can you be mad at the actions of a candidate when you were the one who didn't take the time to research the policies and legislations that these people were in favor of prior to voting them into office? And as I've stated previously, Black people and their behavior are predictable to the point where it can be relegated to the workings of the water cycle. The basic evaporation, condensation, and precipitation, Black people follow this exact same model. The reason why I specifically refer to us in this instance is because a lot of us have this propensity to shame others for not participating in a very counterproductive system, and we are the ones I see most commonly telling others to go out and vote. I can almost guarantee you that when this man initially came into the position of Attorney General, Black people's comportment was the exact same. They probably immediately went out to run and tell other Black people to vote for this Black man because he's Black. And now that we're facing this predicament with Breonna Taylor, now you want to be indignant because he didn't help a woman from his own community? The political immaturity of our community knows no bounds. We vet people after we vote them into office as opposed to doing it before, during, and after, but y'all are so desperate and reach for straws anytime some opportunity is presented to you. And I refuse to become a victim to groupthink just because you all think some delusional attempt at having a puppet in a position of leadership will save you from the conditions of your community. But I'll give my thoughts to this as we cover this article and help you to understand how ignorance is bliss really equates to regression for our community's issues. The article is from CNN, and it starts off by saying, 3 former grand jurors are among the concerned Kentucky citizens petitioning the Kentucky legislature to impeach State Attorney General Daniel Cameron, according to Kevin, one of the attorneys representing the petitioners. The citizens filed a petition Friday seeking the impeachment of Cameron on charges of breach of public trust and failure to comply with duties for misrepresenting to the nation the findings of the grand jury, and abuse of office and breach of duties of unprofessional responsibility and ethics, both of which are connected to the lack of charges filed against the Louisville Metropolitan Police Department officers implicated in the death of Breonna Taylor in September. These are randomly selected citizens who were compelled to sit on a grand jury and were terribly misused by the most powerful law enforcement official in Kentucky, Glogauer said in a news release. What I find to be ironic is how a lot of people are to this day still ignorant to the fact, and I'm not sure if it's deliberate or if it's out of sheer stupidity. Did you really expect for white supremacy to investigate itself and reprimand a lower division within its classification? And see, what we fail to realize is that a lot of what we're seeing in today's climate is done with pure intention. Especially because when you guys paid attention to the riots, police officers themselves are well aware of how to practice proper restraint and use normal means of de-escalating situations. Only with our people are we treated with brute force and excessive measures to handle what was simply something like a broken taillight. Now, for obvious reasons, we know that jurors typically have to remain anonymous so that they can be kept safe and aren't harmed in any way or subject to intimidation or retaliation. However, this is another issue. A significant portion of the time, Black people or cases that involve Black people don't have peers from their community in that jury room. And when those decisions are made and when you have a majority panel, it's likely that panel will make a decision based on the race of that individual, not because of evidence. As much as they sit here and try to convince you that, oh, it's because of the evidence and all of that jazz, it's determined by race. Downplaying it and making it seem as though race doesn't play a factor is very idiotic and delusional, and we all see it. Also, I wouldn't be surprised if it came out that if Black jurors were involved in a Black case, other jurors would try and coerce or force them to change how they make their decision, because when it comes to white supremacy, it is a master of deception and vindictiveness. But I'll touch more on this towards the conclusion of this video. But moving on, the article says, Cameron took over the investigation into the shooting death of Taylor during a Louisville police raid last year. A grand jury did not indict any of the Louisville Metropolitan Police officers involved in the raid on charges connected with Taylor's death. Former detective Brett Hankinson was indicted, however, on 3 counts of wanton endangerment in the first degree for allegedly firing blindly into an apartment next to Taylor's. He has pleaded not guilty. Some of the grand jurors said they weren't given the opportunity to consider homicide charges, and at least one of the grand jurors said that Cameron's public statements about the grand jury involved in the case have been misleading. CNN has reached out to Cameron's office for comment. The petition also calls for charging Cameron with incitement of insurrection for the U.S. Capitol riots that took place on January 6, the same charge on which the U.S. House of Representatives impeached former President Donald Trump. The worst mistake that was made in this case was that Daniel Cameron took over the case. However, like I've stated, it would not surprise me if Black people were the majority of the ones who voted him into that position. And now they are so upset that he didn't deliver in their favor, and that is our fault. We have to take accountability for it because we view everything symbolically and think that just because someone looks like us, they share our same cultural values and have some type of race loyalty, when in fact these individuals are handpicked specifically because they are establishment first, community last. And in the same breath, the conditions of the Black community as it stands, it's unfortunate because the pattern exists where we hope that just maybe once out of all the other times someone from our community is harmed, justice will be properly served. And I get it, because it hurts to see your people fall with no real consequence to hold the person or people accountable. But this is why I propose that we do something different, other than blindly placing faith in a system that historically has never been in our favor. I'm a strong proponent of Malcolm X and this logic, and what I mean by that is be peaceful, but if violence finds you, be ready to fight and seek vengeance if necessary. Stop hoping and praying and actually take some form of action. An eye for an eye is my belief, but that's just me. The article goes on to say the petition cites Cameron's involvement with the National Association of Republican Attorneys General, or RAGA, as the rationale for the incitement charge. The Rule of Law Defense Fund, a nonprofit associated with RAGA, released robocalls urging supporters to march on the Capitol. Cameron is a member of RAGA's 9-member executive committee. Cameron told the Louisville Courier-Journal that he was unaware of the robocalls. RAGA's chairman, Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall, told the Montgomery Advertiser newspaper that he had not authorized the robocalls, and the group is engaging in a vigorous review of the incident. The petition also claimed that Cameron misused taxpayer dollars by joining an effort by Republican attorneys generals supporting a lawsuit that argued that absentee ballots received their polls closed in Pennsylvania on November 3rd should not count in the election. The lawsuit was eventually dismissed. The petition looks to seek immediate review by the Impeachment Committee already established by the Kentucky House of Representatives. The release says, and it aims to prevent Cameron from holding statewide office in the future. Now, here's the thing. Anyone with the ability to apply critical thinking skills to a situation knows this man is disingenuous and spurious in his statements. I remember how on his Instagram he tried posting some BS editorialized version of his failure to indict the police officers on charges, and that it was now left up to the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division to make a determination on if there were any violations of federal and state law. But see, here's the thing. Overall, his interactions to me are duplicitous and and judging from the pictures that we saw earlier last year, you better believe that we know exactly what ruling he was in favor of. However, what some of us are also not paying attention to is the fact that this man is a Republican. And because the Republican Party openly and freely expresses racist ideologies and sentiments, this black man was able to ignore all of that to swear his allegiance to their party, and that says to me that he's far beyond the sunken place. He's in a permanent state of aberration. These types are ultimately a lost cause. Don't expect for them to change or enter a stage of refinement, because he represents the faction of black people that see themselves far removed from blackness and are white adjacent in their maneuvering of the society. How can you be a member of a committee and not know the ins and outs of the operations that take place within it? Like I said, this man is eccentric and odd to me, and I do believe the brain transfer that happened in Get Out is exactly what happened to him. They just did a good job of covering up the incisions of where the surgery was performed. The fact that he also participated in a variation of voter suppression also isn't surprising, because when the article mentioned that he was a contributor in a lawsuit where votes shouldn't count after November 3rd is an example of how voter suppression works. They implement certain underhanded tactics employed to turn the election in the favor of the candidate that they wish to occupy a political position for. And even though I have my own biased views towards voting, I will say that I'm very proud of Stacey Abrams, because she helped Georgia secure a victory by helping to combat the system of voter suppression and made Georgia turn blue for the first time in several election cycles. Kind of wish we had that type of unity outside of voting, but that's just wishful thinking on my end. But I'll finish this out because there's only a little bit left. It says, Ben Crump, the attorney representing Taylor's family, praised the petitioners. We encourage the House committee to seriously review this petition and hold A.G. Cameron accountable for his role in misleading the public and the grand jurors and denying justice for Breonna Taylor and her family, Crump said in a statement on Friday. Here's the thing, even though Daniel Cameron was a Republican, I feel like we still share some accountability for this, because what if the shoe was on the other foot and he had been a Democrat and no form of tangible action happened that would help institute a punishment for these police officers? And what I'm trying to say is, again, to stop voting for these people because they're black. I know we think having black people in powerful positions may be beneficial, but it could also be our worst nightmare if we don't learn to look at these people's backgrounds and research what past policies they were in support of or what legislations they are currently in favor of. A small side rant, I wish black people would really stop saying we are playing chess. A lot of y'all don't even know the names of the chess pieces, let alone how the game is even played. And so when they think they're playing chess, they're actually playing checkers at the beginner's level. Anyways, I won't keep you guys too long. I hope he is impeached, because Breonna Taylor deserves to be here with us right now, and it infuriates me every day thinking about how her and countless other black people never receive any real tangible justice and are met with symbolism that does nothing for our community except quietly rock us back to sleep and fool us into thinking we have alliances, when in reality, if that were true, laws would have already been passed to make sure these events would not happen. But maybe one day we'll learn our lesson. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and share the video. Thank you guys so much for your continued support, and I will see you in the next one.